What happens to a house when people enter it alive and never leave and no one records their deaths? As Italy fractured under occupation and internal collapse, certain villas across the country were given a quiet name. They were not prisons. They were not police stations. They looked like ordinary homes. And yet, people whispered about them as Villa Triste, sad villas, villas of sorrow, places where people were taken and did not return. The most infamous Villa Triste stood in Florence, hidden in a residential area where daily life continued only meters away. From the outside, it looked no different from surrounding homes. Windows, gardens, gates. Nothing suggested what happened inside. That was the point. These villas were chosen because they blended in. Screams could be mistaken for arguments. Nighttime activity could be dismissed. Silence could be enforced. After 1943, when Nazi Germany occupied northern Italy, fascist police units and collaborators used these villas as secret detention centers. People were arrested without formal charges. Resistance members, suspected sympathizers, ordinary civilians accused without evidence. They were brought inside quietly. Their names were often never written down. Survivor testimony later confirmed what occurred behind those walls. Prisoners were interrogated under torture. Beatings were routine. Executions took place inside or nearby. Bodies were removed discreetly, often after dark. Neighbors testified after the war that screams were heard regularly, especially at night. Not once, not rarely, repeatedly. And then, without warning, they would stop. What made Villa Triste different from other wartime sites was not only what happened there, but how completely it was hidden. No guards posted openly. No public records. No official acknowledgement. People disappeared into normal-looking houses and were erased. When Florence was liberated in 1944, investigators entered the villa. What they found confirmed the testimonies. Evidence of torture, bloodstains, equipment. Survivors identified rooms where interrogations occurred. The crimes were real. The suffering was documented. Trials followed. Some perpetrators were executed or imprisoned. And then the villa was emptied. That should have been the end of the story. The perpetrators were gone. The victims were remembered. The building remained. But, something about the place did not change when it was cleared. People who entered the villa after the war described an immediate sense that it was not vacant. Not haunted, in the traditional sense. Not filled with apparitions or voices. It felt occupied. As if, activity had paused, not ended. Former residents refused to stay. Tenants moved out without explanation. Workers asked to be reassigned. Some said they felt watched even in daylight. Others described sudden panic without cause, as if their bodies reacted before their minds could. At night, the unease intensified. Locals claimed they heard sounds from inside when no one was supposed to be there. Not screams anymore. Those had belonged to the war. What people heard afterward were quieter noises, footsteps, objects shifting, doors closing softly. Sounds that suggested routine, not chaos. Why would a place built for suffering continue to feel occupied once everyone left? Across Italy, similar stories followed other Villa Triste locations. Even when buildings were renovated or repurposed, people reported the same sensation. A heaviness. A resistance to silence. The sense that something was still underway. No single ghost story emerged. There were no named spirits. No clear figures ever appeared. The paranormal reputation of this place, it didn't form around apparitions. Instead, it formed around continuity, the sense that whatever had happened there, it never fully stopped. Silence returned, but it was not empty. Unlike abandoned ruins, Villa Triste locations were intact, maintained, lived in briefly. That made the dread worse, There was no decay to blame, no visible damage to explain the feeling. The buildings functioned normally while refusing to feel normal. People began avoiding them, not because of superstition, but because staying felt wrong, as if entering meant interrupting something that had never finished. The screams that once filled the night were gone, but their absence felt louder than their presence had been. People said it felt as though the walls remembered the sound and waited for it to return. What does it mean for a place to remember? Over time, the villas became symbols rather than addresses. Their exact locations were known, but rarely discussed. Children were warned away without explanation. New residents were not told the history until after they left. The buildings did not demand attention, they repelled it. The most disturbing aspect of Villa Triste is not that people believe it is haunted. It's actually that so many describe the same sensation without ever coordinating their stories. There's this sense of occupation without figures, activity without actors, memory without release. The war ended. The execution stopped. The perpetrators were removed. But the villas were never emptied of what happened inside them. Those who entered Villa Triste locations in the years that followed described a sensation that was immediate and physical. The air felt thick, as if it resisted breathing. Sound behaved strangely. Voices seemed muted, but footsteps carried too far. Some said it felt as though the building adjusted itself around them, tightening when they moved deeper inside. One persistent legend claims that the villas never learned how to be quiet again. Even when unoccupied, people reported hearing low, constant sounds, like movement behind walls or beneath floors. Not loud enough to identify, but steady enough to feel deliberate. Those who tried to stay overnight said the noise never stopped, only shifted from room to room as if following presence. Another story speaks of rooms that caused extreme reactions without warning. Visitors described sudden dizziness, overwhelming fear, and the urge to flee specific spaces. These rooms were often the same ones survivors later identified as interrogation areas. People who entered them alone said they felt crowded, as if standing too close to others in the dark. Some claimed they heard breathing when no one else was present, slow, measured, close enough to feel against the skin. When they turned, nothing was there. And when they stood still, the sensation remained. The most disturbing folklore centers on sound. Not screams as they were heard during the war, but, honestly, something worse. Muffled cries that never fully formed, sounds trapped between silence and voice. People said it felt like hearing someone trying not to be heard. Why would a place where people were silenced produce sounds that refused to become clear? Others described shadows that did not behave like shadows. Shapes that stayed fixed when light changed. Darkness that appeared to watch rather than conceal. Some claimed these shapes gathered in corners, especially at night, as if avoiding open space. A particularly grim legend claims that if the viners were completely empty, the sensation became stronger, as though presence required absence to surface. That the fewer living people inside, the more crowded the space felt. Some locals believed the villas were not haunted by spirits, but by unfinished moments. That the people taken there were never allowed final acts, final words, or final recognition. Their lives stopped mid-process. According to this belief, the buildings absorbed that interruption. There are also whispers that the villas react to attention. Some say that staying still makes the atmosphere worse. Others claim that moving too quickly just feels dangerous. And, that speaking aloud causes this pressure in the chest, as if the walls themselves resist sound. A final piece of folklore claims that the villas do not want witnesses. People who stay too long feel compelled to leave, not really out of fear, but out of exhaustion. It's almost as if, the place just drains the ability to remain. Honestly, the most terrifying part of Villa Triste is not what appears. It's what does not. There are no figures, no clear voices, no release. There's only the sense that the activity inside never ended, and, that it does not recognize peace. If this story stayed with you, this series documents real places where the paranormal does not arrive suddenly, but sort of settles in after violence ends. You can subscribe to continue. The next location was not used briefly and abandoned. It's still standing, still active and still refusing to feel empty, ill.